Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. How you doing,
Hey
Chris?
everybody.
Hey, hey, hey. See you jamming along again to the. I'm going to send you that as like an MP3 just for like your little alarm clock in the morning.
Are you gonna Rickroll me with your opening credit music? Is that
Just, yeah.
open this file, Peter? Brr.
I mean, it's the way we're going to go. How's Peter?
Pretty good. Been uh actually enjoying this sunny weather. So I was up in London, had some meetings, and I took a long walk from kind of up in the city all the way to Waterloo Station, which I've done that walk before. I've worked. Salesforce's office is right in the city on Bishopsgate and like right next to Liverpool Street Station. And I don't know exactly how far it is, but it's a good few miles to go from there to Waterloo Station. But it's a lovely walk. You sort of go across the Millennium Bridge, or you can go down, like straight down to kind of London Bridge, and then kind of walk across the South Thames Walk there.
Hmm.
So did that yesterday afternoon, which always puts me in a good mood. What can I say? London's a beautiful city on a beautiful sunny day. I can't go wrong.
Very nice indeed. What were you doing in London? Was it
Oh,
customers?
just
Was it...
yeah, just meetings. So yeah,
But I see you've been out and about though as well.
I have, yeah.
Developing
So got down
groups.
to Bristol.
Bristol. Ooh.
Yeah, Bristol. Probably it's hard. London or Bristol? Tough. I like them both. But Bristol has this amazing Salesforce community activity where the Bristol user group, Bristol developer group, they're both really active. The folks at there's a small Salesforce ISV down there, not ISV, Salesforce system integrator, SI partner down there called Design It, who are, should be known by people for the sheer number of MVPs that they have
Mm.
minted over the course of the years has got to, as far as how big they are and how many people they've managed to get active in the community. And it shows because they've got both those groups going on. So I was down there last week, and I used to do this talk. I used to do two different talks on command lines. The first one was if you could write a Salesforce formula, you can use the command line. And the other one was called Solving Everyday Problems with the Salesforce CLI, which you actually helped me with creating because
Oh,
I went to the Northern England developer group. It was a joint meeting of developer and admin group,
yeah.
and I took on this challenge, which I totally failed at. But I asked people to give me like, what are some things that you would want to be able to do like without having to log into an org? And I went to try and solve
Oh,
a few of them, but that created the list of things that I went on and solved. I created the talk that I did at Dreamforce later that year. Um, but those talks all belong to Salesforce. I did them as a Salesforce employee. That's how things work when you work for a big company and your job is to build content for
yes.
them. The content belongs to them. So this was an opportunity to kind of create my own take on it, create a new take. Those were my own. I don't know that anyone will ever use that at Salesforce. I think everybody at Salesforce probably forgot that I did it at this point,
Yeah.
except maybe a few people. But I got
It's there to
to.
like on a chatter feed in a file somewhere, and as soon as they just switch chatter off, it's gone dark.
Yeah, exactly. It was, I think the only person that would now find that would probably be my former boss, because when you leave Salesforce, your manager gets access, it becomes the new owner of your former Google Drive
Oh
directory.
wow! So yeah.
Yeah, which is a little insane as a manager, because you wake up, you go to work one day and all of a sudden, like, you've got all this other stuff that sort of belongs to
Shopping
you.
list one dot.
So like you end up having to create some you have to get a bit creative on filters
Yes.
to make sure that like it's not sort of your Google Drive and Google app workspace isn't sort of overwhelmed by all your former employees that you once had. So anyway, so this was, yeah, I got to rewrite, I could come up with some new ideas. And
That's great.
I spent a little bit more time talking about, because I as I was building it, I realized I've never taken the time to distinguish in my mind the difference between the terminal and the actual shell that runs in the terminal,
Okay.
right? And it's like, I mean, they're different things. They're clearly, one's one, one's the other, but like I sort of thought about them as the same. And so I took some time kind of going through the history because I don't know about you, but my first use of like real big, powerful computers was at a DEC T100 terminal that was connected to a VAX VMS computer in a data center somewhere on campus at my university. And that was like, it's like, oh yeah. So the thing we call a terminal is actually a terminal emulator. Like that's what
Mm.
that is. And
Yes.
so like that was my sort of lead into it is like, let's understand what we're actually using here. Why do we call this thing a terminal? And so I kind of when it did a little history of terminals and command lines and shells and that sort of thing, which I had done that previously, but more from the perspective of the shell itself. And
Yeah.
this one, because it was, because I was talking to a group of admins, I wanted them to understand the difference between the app that they open on their desktop, the terminal
Mm.
emulator, and the software that runs in it. In other words, the shell, right?
Mm.
So I kind of took the time to do a level set on that and then kind of went in. And there's a few bits that when you want to teach someone how to use a shell, it's the same stuff, right? It's how do you create a directory, remove a
Mm.
directory, copy files, move files, search, look for text inside of a file, like all these, core commands. So like those demos don't look that different from the demos that I did of my old talks,
No,
but
it's not.
like what else are you gonna do, right? Like, to me, that's not the IP. The IP was the storytelling. So I got to come up with a new story, which was a lot of fun.
That sounds cool. I've never been down to. I don't think I've ever been to Bristol, let alone to the one of the Bristol groups down there. So at some point, I need to. I know, although I know many of the people that have been down there.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I'll tell Dorian that you're open to coming. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I'll have to like book that in as it for me to be like a hell of a drive, but I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
And
And then the other bit of
yes,
news, just as far as like me kind of being out and about there in the
mhm.
community, I will be on Apex Hours in
Ooh,
2 weekends, and I'm gonna be giving my machine learning models talk that I gave at, London's Calling this last year. So that should be a lot of fun.
that'll be cool. That's definitely one to watch. So yeah, Apex Hours, fantastic channel. They're like, I mean, we had Amit on the Cloud Bytes Conversations podcast not that long
Yeah,
ago,
I listened to that. It was really good. That was really
and like
good.
Amit is the Amit's the pinnacle of just a giver. Like he just wants to
Yeah.
like give and share, and like
Yeah.
he had in a world of influencers that are all trying to like monetize and make and like sell content and sell a brand, and it's just like I want to help people learn, and it is refreshing and wonderful. um
He strikes me as, someone with one of the most generous sort of spirits that, and attitudes toward that I've encountered. So, yeah, totally agree.
so if you have a link to the to it, let us know and we can drop it in the show notes, or we can.
Yeah, I've popped it across my LinkedIn feed, but we'll send a link on and make sure people know that that's there. So,
Yeah, cool,
and
that
maybe
sounds.
maybe pop one into the comments as well. I'll go look that up and do that.
Yes, so anyone who's watching, so those who have joined us, I've seen people trickle in as we've been chatting away. So
Oh,
hello,
yay.
welcome, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it might be where you are. If you are watching along, thank you for coming, and drop a little comment to say hello and let us know where you're watching from. Um, so just before we came on air, and just as a couple, something you were saying a second ago, we Pete and I were talking briefly about Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Google Sheets and Sparklines. One of the things I was going to ask you is, have you ever seen the Excel World Championships?
Oh, I have seen some. I mean, I've never followed the whole thing,
No, no, no,
but
no,
I've
no.
seen some videos of Yeah, people do amazing things with Excel spreadsheets. Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't saying this like I was expecting you to say, "Oh yeah," and John Smith, he's my favorite
Yeah,
Exceller, and I feel like just rip
who
on
are
your
the
shoe.
influencers in the Excel spreadsheet championships? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but like that,
Awesome.
I came across that once, and I was just like, that is crazy. Like watching
It
that. What's even crazier is there are people that bet on it. Did you know that there's a thriving gambling community around Excel sports, which I think is the most niche thing ever.
People will gamble on anything, I
Oh,
think.
there's
So, yeah, like, it doesn't surprise me at all. I wouldn't have imagined it. Not surprised, though.
if you I don't know if you're on Instagram, Pete, or not. If you are, I will find you and add you.
Vaguely, occasionally.
I will send you the hey capability snob. Um, welcome along again, and thank you for joining us for when you can. Um, so yeah, in on Instagram, I'll send you this video that I sent to my brother, and it is a German game show. I think it's a game show. I hope it's not a real sport. Where there's a train going around a track, right, just in the circle, just like a little steam engine, and the carriages on it have different numbers, and there's a little kind of contraption where you drop a ping pong ball or a similar ball, and then it has to go around the contraption, and your aim is to get it into one of the carriages as the train goes past. And like,
Oh,
it's one of those things that I was watching. I was like, "This is stupid," and I was like, "I've just watched a full minute and a half reel on this because I can't not watch to see where they get it." And it is, absolutely brilliant. So I'll send you that later. Um,
that's
yeah, it's the
hilarious.
sort of thing I could easily see people like. I think the caption was like, why were you up late so late last night? Like, because I was betting on the German train ball game at 3 a.m. And I could just like completely imagine people being like obsessed by it.
So speaking of, like, interesting competitions or interesting things about interesting competitions in this case, so my son, he's in a for his, the end of his secondary school, he's in a game design program at a local technical college, which it's great. Like, I wish I had done that. I wish I could have done that when I was in secondary school. It sounds so much fun.
I'd love to do that now.
Yeah,
I was really
that's
worried.
a
Sorry, I
good
was really worried
point.
for a second there when we were talking about gambling that you were going to. Like, my son, he's in a really detailed gambling ring at high school. Like, yeah, anyway, sorry. Please go on.
Well, here's the thing. Adjacent to the game design program, they have an esports studies program. You can actually go to this school and your entire course of study for the last 2 years of secondary school is, I guess, how to kill it on video games. I mean, that just blows me away. It's sort
That's
of like it's like getting your, your A levels in sport, but
yeah.
you're doing it for video games. I mean, like, my mind was blown when I first realized that such a program existed. I was surprised my son didn't go off and just like, "I think I'll just do the esports, dad. Screw the whole writing the code thing and doing the 3D modeling. I just wanna play video games." So
I I mean, Peter knows my wife, and I'm very tempted to go downstairs this house and be like, "Listen, yeah, I've decided a career change. I'd like you to help me like go through school and do this new study." What do you think my odds of getting away with that are, Pete? Like,
I think if you sell it well enough, I could see her being supportive, maybe.
yes, Amanda is wonderful and supportive, but there's probably a line at which she's like, "No."
Alright, I'm
Um,
totally failing on finding the link to my upcoming Apex Hours episode,
we
which
will
I
find it. And
swear I had, but, that's fine. We'll post something later.
no worries. So the other thing you mentioned a minute ago, which is very, very topical and is not related to us playing Excel sports against each other, was you did a command line talk.
Yeah.
Um, now, why is that topical? I hear everyone asking.
Bum, bum,
Um,
bum.
Well, for those that have read the description on this video or have seen the post on LinkedIn, we are today going to be continuing our arc and our story by moving to creating a command line. And before we dive into doing so, the steps, I just want to recap what we've been doing and kind of make sure that the story is kind of clear because Peter and I sat down, and when we're not talking about Excel sports and spark lines in Excel and game design and betting on German train games at 3 a.m.
As you
Um,
do.
as you do. We actually come up. This is actually somewhat planned. This entire thing, and I know that there's probably a good portion of the audience now that are even more shocked. But what we were trying to do with this series is start off talking about APIs and how an API works, and we've been working with the Pexels API, and we started off many episodes ago by just pulling some data down from the Pexels API in Apex. So we talked about how you connect, how you would authenticate, how you write the REST requests. And then we started creating controller, and we added named credentials and external credentials. And then we finalized kind of the end of last week, didn't we, with 3 different ways of doing it. We had pure kind of Apex option. We had a pure kind of LWC option where it was just making a fetch request. And then we had a third option where we butchered the NPM package into Salesforce.
Right. Yep.
And those are all interesting ways just to show kind of how that integrates and how that interacts. And what we're trying to show here is, first of all, for those who haven't done any API connections in Salesforce, that's how you do them, and those are your options. And hopefully, you've kind of seen Peter and I explain some of the reasoning, some of the pros and cons of each one's way, because there's no wrong answer really, is there? In many areas of coding, there's a best answer normally, but there's no like. If you gave me that problem, either one would work. It kind of is dependent on how.
Yeah, there's a phrase that I like. I once heard, and it's always attracted me on this. Whenever I see a question that is, "What's the best way?" Or "What's the right way?" is probably even worse. And the answer, I think, is always, "What are you optimizing for?"
Yes.
Like, what are your constraints? Like, where do you need to, you know, you know, where do you need to really get the most out of, the thing that you're doing, and what are the compromises you can make? And as you weigh all of those things, then, probably one of your options is going to rise to the top as the best in that instance, but it's always, in that instance.
And I think just a kind of key follow on from that as well, which is an interesting kind of aside, is when we talk about restraints and resources and constraints you have there, they are not just governor limits or
Mhm.
time or things like. And when I say time, I mean like CPU time, sort of processing time. Um, One of the things I think people might not think about until they're kind of even sometimes managing a project or managing a team or an organization is that you have soft constraints. So skill set constraints. You might choose to do the Apex route because, excuse me, Apex.
Yeah.
You don't, you're that kind of. I mean, for anyone who hasn't seen the end of the last episode, where um, I'm going to call it a brief inspired moment of find and replace, and let's hope it works from me. Got that NPM package like loaded in. That was pretty much it, wasn't it? I was like, let's just shove that in and try it. And it's only because I have spent enough time breaking things and going, let's try it, that
Hmm.
I knew where to even bother breaking it.
Right.
That sort of thing, though, I think is a constraint that if you haven't got the JavaScript experience or skills, and I'm not saying that I definitely have the JavaScript experience or skills, as people will have seen, like you might just go down the Apex route. So skills are also a constraint. Who's going to support it is a constraint. The cost, the time, all of these other things are constraints just outside the technical details of what you can and can't do. So
And I
yeah,
think that's doubly so in there's a lot of places where software gets written, but when you're paying somebody by the hour to deliver a feature, or
right.
rather you're the person who is billing by the hour, and that you can get a better ROI by returning, by producing a feature faster because you already know something. It's, you're not going to take the extra time to learn that new programming language, or or even API within a programming language, moving, thinking of JavaScript and going from the old like callback structure to then using promises to then using async and await, all of those things took sort of cognitive effort to move out of the callbacks may have had their problems, but if you knew how to use them well, you could deliver that feature faster when you didn't know how to use a promise because it was a little bit, uh, you know, it wasn't exactly clear and obvious. It was a very different pattern to what
Mm.
you were using before. And so, which is also, I think there's a really good case for that or example of that in the Salesforce world. you know, Years after Lightning had launched as the UI framework, there were still loads of new Visual Force pages being created because it was such a successful technology for so
Mm.
long for Salesforce that, if you had a custom piece of user interface to produce and you knew Visual Force, why would you go and learn Lightning
Yeah.
components or Lightning Web Components? I would be really curious to know how many new Visual Force pages get added per month even still, and I would guess it's still a pretty decent sized number.
Well, there's still things that it can do that others can't. You can't make a PDF from a Lightning Web Component.
But even outside of that, like, I would
Oh
bet
yeah,
there are still people who are like, "I know Visual Force, this is gonna get the feature delivered," and they do it. I
I
wouldn't be
was
surprised.
I was talking to someone earlier on, um, and they were telling me that they have a friend who uses Salesforce and is not in the Salesforce space, but uses Salesforce and is still using Classic because they were like, I know how this works, and they are super efficient at their job.
Yep.
And they're like, I don't need any of the Lightning stuff. Like, I want to go in and edit the fields and come out, and that's it. And they're in
Yeah.
sales, and they're like, what? And everyone's like, well, why don't you? No, 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 no. This works
Yeah.
perfectly.
And
Is it?
that's a capability snob has has
Yeah.
commented in there, then that's, very apropos, I think. Absolutely. If
Oh
you
yeah.
have more experience and, you've got a broader set of skills, then you do have more options and you do have more leeway. And again, that goes back to the whole thing about like that is a constraint. If the only tool in your toolbox is a hammer,
Yep.
you might be able to solve that problem with a hammer, but it might be a lot messier than if you had a screwdriver. So
Oh yeah. Just hammer everything. So what we were saying to kind of take us back to the journey we were on. So the end of last week, we kind of have all these different options for it. And what we're trying to show you is that there's different ways of doing these things, but effectively with APIs in particular, it doesn't really matter how you connect. You could
Mhm,
just connect and get the data. And so today we're taking that another step further by talking about moving to a command line. So the aim of today's episode, 23 minutes in already, is to build. We're going to start off by building a little ULI, a little CLI using Oakcliff, which is an open source framework produced by Salesforce and some of the guys at Heroku when they came across for building command lines. And I'm going to make a very simple command line that allows us to run it and is going to output an image. And we're going to use the Pexels npm that we've seen before. Their package. We're going to use a package called image to ASCII, and we're hopefully going to not spend too long on it, but just create a very quick, easy command line that allows us to go bang and run the command line and get an image put out on the screen for us in some ASCII art. And that's going to be wonderful and super, but just kind of talks us through how a command line works. Oakcliff's really cool because it is Node.js based, so you can build a command line using Node.js and JavaScript. And then from there, what our plan is I'm going to hand over to Pete, and Pete's going to go away and talk about Salesforce CLI plugins because the Salesforce CLI is built using Oakcliff, and it
mhm,
has this wonderful plugin structure where you can build your own extensions. And there's a bunch of really cool ones out there already. I saw something the other day from Todd Halfpenny, who is been on the podcast, is a friend of the show, and just an all-round wonderful human being. But he was saying about how he'd written a little command line plugin for a problem he had, and then like was using it the other day, and just like he's open sourced it, he shared it, but many people now use it, including himself, and it's just a nice thing. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and we're going to do effectively the same thing as we were doing here for this command line, but for a Salesforce plugin. And then we're going to talk about some ideas we have of where we want to take this.
Sounds good. Yeah, let's jump in.
Let's dive on in. So I'm going to start showing my screen first of all.
And I did try to post the URL, but it's oclif.io if anybody wants to go and check that out. And we will put that in the show notes, of course.
Yeah, I've just stuck it into the chat now. So oclif.io. So you can see here, it's a very, very simple kind of framework. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run this. I'm going to run npx oclif and then generate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate, is that quite small, that isn't it? Can I zoom in?
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Bigger.
You need to get a theme for your Z shell, my friend.
This is again one of those things where I'm going to be a bit of like, I kind of like default themes and things.
Oh my god, I love my seashell theme. So
I don't have an issue against themes, and but like I don't mind, like I suppose I'm still quite comfortable with a black screen with white text or white screen with black text, because I'm like, that was the default option I had for so long. But like, yeah, it works. So I'm going to generate a new command line, and what I'm going to call it is, let's call it Pexels ASCII, right? Yeah, just Pexels ASCII like that. Cool. And hit enter. And voila, it's going to go away and do some stuff. And I'm going to say, yes, you can install the thing you need to install. The setup for this, if you haven't got some of this already, is you'll need Node, you'll need npm installed, kind of standard Node.js stuff. We'll use ESM. We'll call it Pexels ASCII. Pexels ASCII. Yeah, that's fine. I'm the guy who's made it. We'll open source this because why not? And we'll use npm. And it's running all that stuff for us. So it's doing all this fun for us in the background. But it's going to go away and it's going to run and create and install everything. Whilst it's finishing doing its thing there, we're going to also in a minute install this, which is called image to ASCII.
nice.
Can anyone guess what this is going to do? So what we're going to do is, the intention of this little command line is you are going to be able to run it, and it's going to go away and retrieve a random image from Pexels, ASCIify it. ASCIify, I think, is the correct word. ASCIificate this, and then stick it out on the stick it out on the terminal so we can see what it looks like. Boom.
Keep your ASCIificating to yourself.
Yes. I spend a lot of time ASCIificating. So I'm just going to open this up in code. Voila. Yes, I trust the authors of this folder. It's not in my default space, but hey ho, that's fine. And of course it does that. And if you give me a second, people, I'm just going to copy the link and share it with Peter in the background.
Nice. All right. Yay.
So Peter can come. Peter's going to come in now and do all the actual work. Not just So we have that. Couple of things we want to do as well is let's install Pexels. So to do that, where was the documentation? I don't need to look at my API key. There are different packages. Where was the packages client library? So this has different packages for it. You obviously have Node and all the others. We're going to use Pexels JavaScript here. So npm install Pexels, yada, yada, yada. So we did that kind of last time, but I'm just going to do it again. npm install hyphen save. Too many hyphens.
Extra hyphen, yeah.
Yeah.
You need to tell it which. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm doing it the wrong way around, aren't I?
Yeah, I think that matters.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a question. There you go. So that's going to save Pexels for us, and I might as well do the other one, well, which is image to ASCII. I'm going to be lazy. It doesn't matter. See, we did one that way around and one this way around. There you go. We have learned something just by dint of copying. So, voila, that's going to do its thing. And we have our packages installed. The other thing I have done prior to this, we have errors. We have errors. What is this?
You might want to make that slightly larger. Just
Yeah, sure. Installing whip. Ooh, that's not pretty. Shall we install? Fail to install whip. This fails. Just install graphics magic. Lodash. Ooh, that's ugly. All right, we will decide how big a problem that is in a minute. Not my problem right now. I can install the other thing in a minute, but let's just see what we've got here. So in our package.json, we have Oakcliff and we have Pexels working. So the way that an Oakcliff kind of set up is, it's done it in TypeScript for me and it hasn't run. As here, and it executes things as they go. You can see it's awaiting, and it's just doing all of this excitement stuff.
yeah, and then one of the choices that you made, so you did this as a one-off command line, right? So there is the option, in the same way that the Salesforce CLI is a pluggable command line, one of the Oakcliff options is to build a more complex command line that has different plugins and that sort of thing. So
there's
it's
lots
just to point that out. So
yeah, no, it's very worthwhile pointing out. There's loads of stuff in here where you can add all sorts of,
and it just takes away a lot of the, like, if you have to read you have to create a flag, like you create a flag, and if you have to read a flag, like there's a way to do that. So all of that kind of nice bundling up of what you would expect and need from a command line is done for you.
Exactly. Cool. So we have a bunch of things here in the source. We have an index, which is going to export run from Oakcliff core, which is basically where our entry point is. We then have, in fact, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm just going to hop back and we have a look here. It says that what you can do is obviously just do bin run.js hello world, and you can put in stuff. So if I do, just move that out of the way so I can copy properly. If I run that at the moment, it will then just say hello world. Okay, so it goes into the hello one and then runs world. That's how that kind of operates. So we're going to add into our commands. We're going to add a new command in, I imagine. It's probably the first thing we want to do because it's got the command hello in there. We want to add a new command in. So here we have the option to generate command. And should we generate a command called, what should we call this command? So we just want to get a picture, don't we? So should we call it picture?
Sure.
Oakcliff not found. That's because I probably need it to be npx where I haven't added it. Cool. So it's added our picture file here. And in commands, we have picture.ts. And so this is what kind of our default one looks like. So we have a couple of things we're importing. So args, command, and flags. These are the things that you will see on a normal command line kind of interaction. So yeah, we have a bunch of things in here. We can see some examples. If we want to put some examples in there, we have flags that we can expect, so a name to print, and so on and so forth. And this is kind of what it returns and runs. But run here is really the thing that is going to do the magic work for us. So we can parse our arguments and our flags, and we can do things. You can see here, this is just doing the hello world default. So what it's actually doing is it's saying, go through our arguments and parse them. Do we have a flag called name, which is a flag it kind of expects? If it says no, then it just puts world and it logs out hello world from blah 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 blah. And then if there's a file on a false, it'll output that. We're going to remove this because we do not need that. Okay, and we don't need that flag either, do we? So I'm now going to import our Pexels library. So apologies if there's a little bit of jumping around as we're showing different things here, but we go back to Pexels. You can see here we've got our client library, and if I go to the example of JavaScript, you can see here we just kind of import these. And we saw this last time. This is really just kind of very standard kind of package management stuff. So create client from our API key. And I need to get that from our environment variables, which would be process.env.pexels API key, I think. Ooh, look at that, it knows.
Looking good.
Is it listening to me? That's a bit weird. I don't need to parse these because I don't have any. So we have our client, which is good. And then the next thing we're going to need to do is go and run our little command to retrieve the data. Now, we already have this from our previous episode. So I'm just going to create a new window here real quick. I'm going to move it to my other screen and open up our, where's my finding gone? Just going to open up our previous workspace and just get the information we wanted from that. It was in Sandbox sessions and SAP. So forgive me a second for doing this. Library. Because I'm just being very lazy here and just saying that we just want to use the same code. We've got code, it works. There's no need for us to reinvent the wheel. Okay, so there you go, bang.
Good.
So just to remind people what's going on here, we have a page number. And then I'm just going to let's just call. Just give me a second. Let pick URL blank, and then I'm just going to say this dot. Oops. Sorry, if it seems like I'm hopping around a little bit, I've got the microphone in the way. Is the problem. Let's just return. Would be log, wouldn't it? Was it response? Yeah, this dot log. Here's a picture for you. Pick URL. In fact, I can just whack that up in there, can't I? Don't need that to be on its own line.
Yeah, that should work. Oh yeah. There we go.
There you go. That just makes things a bit neater, and we'll worry about other stuff later. Cool. Okay, so this is a very rough and ready item, but it should kind of work for us, I think. We'll save it.
Yeah, the one thing that I would say, and there's nothing wrong with what you are doing. Well, go ahead and run it, and then we can talk about the difference between like a log output.
It goes. No. Yeah. So we're going to run this, and we're going to run picture. Command picture not found. Well, that's a great start. Why is picture not
capital
found?
P?
Say again?
Capital P? Try uppercase? Or was it? Oh no, you generated it as lowercase. Never mind.
Yes. Why are we not getting that?
Why is that? I mean, the JavaScript class does show as picture uppercase.
Does it? Says picture there.
The class itself, like I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know. That's not the command, though. I mean, the command is something else.
Yeah.
So I'm a little puzzled myself.
Directory. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's just check. There's no config that's missing on there. Okay, there you go. First hurdle. Let's have a look and see what we've got here. So let's just guide, custom base class, configure and use CLI. Yada, yada, yada. Flags, 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 exit codes. Anything importing it? I don't think so. Here we go. Sometimes you want it to be the only command for ls or cat. Put your command logic into source index and add the following to the oclif. I wonder if that's it. And that is saying in here the source index ts command logic. We could just move it in there actually, as we only want one command for this. So let me just try that to simplify some of these things down a minute. Actually, let's keep this simple. Let's not go too far off of the thing a minute. Flag inheritance, ESM, configures. So generator commands, templates. It's a tiny picture. There we go. Whoa. Yeah, so it's not finding the command, is what it's saying. Where's the oclif.json file that we just mentioned a second ago? Because here it's saying here, and sorry, I'm hopping around terribly, and that's not very helpful for anyone. So, in the package.json, we can see the commands we've got there, right? So, if we go here to package.json, the commands we've got, commands, disk commands, topics, say hello. So we've got topics there. I wonder if it needs to be in here. Do you think? You're on mute, Pete.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'd be surprised that it's a bit surprising that it wouldn't have done that, wouldn't have added the topic for you, you know?
I think that, yes.
But it's worth a try.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's a topic, and so topics aren't actually commands.
Yeah,
Like a
so
topic won't actually go and do something.
this
So
/ command.
this commands.
Hello. 1 minute. I wonder if it's because it's not built. I wonder if I have to build it. I don't think I've built it, and that's why. So where's the build command?
Run instead of run.js, try dev.js.
Yeah. Bad option. Disable warning equals experimental. It's a different error.
It's a shorter error.
Technically, it's a longer error. We've got a different one. I wonder if we do have to build it.
That's really interesting.
Let's just see. 1 minute. Commands, npm install, running command. Yep. Usage. Blah 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 blah.
That doesn't make sense because when you did your hello world, like you didn't have to build that.
No, but I wonder if that comes pre-packaged in it. I'm gonna just. Is there a build? Whoop. Type string is not assignable to type number. There's all sorts of errors. Oh no. I wonder if it's going to ask for all sorts of things. Yeah, it's got 3 errors, so it's not going to build because it wants TypeScript everywhere, doesn't it?
Oh, did you set it as a TypeScript project and not a JavaScript?
I don't think I chose to.
Okay.
I don't think I had a choice, but let's have a look.
Yeah, it is creating those as .ts.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It is, yeah. Okay. we are going to need to. Oh, I don't really use TypeScript. This will be fun then. So, where were the 3 errors we just got? They are in here. Argument of type string undefined is not assignable to parameter of type string. Type undefined is not. Wait, how do we even define this as a string? Oops. You just
Oh,
pasted
did I
in the
do
live
something?
stream. Yeah, you pasted in the live stream link. Don't worry. It's all right.
Oh, how did I do that? That's really weird.
So
I didn't mean to do that. Sorry.
no, it's all right. So yeah, I wonder if I'm going to try something real quick and see if this. If that. Oh no, it's not going to allow that, is it? Because it doesn't like that. Because that's all TypeScript. Let's. No promise for it. Yeah, it's really not going to like that. So we need to add some stuff in to get this to work. So this is going to be page num is never reassigned. Use const instead. I mean, that's fine. I can do that if you really want. And that's a number per page. What do we got here?
Okay, we're timing you. I just pasted that into ChatGPT 4.0 to see if we can get the TypeScript version of it.
Let's see if add option. It's weird that that's a problem as well. Okay, well, this could be a very short attempt at building a command line. This is what happens when we do these things live rather than pre-trying them beforehand and realizing. So property of type string undefined is not assignable to parameter of type string. Type undefined is not. Okay, so let's try doing this then. Let's go string TypeScript. We're going to learn TypeScript together, everyone. Let employee. Okay, that should be easy enough. Let employee blank string equals. So what we're going to do is go let API key string equal that or that, and then we're going to use API key. That I think gets rid of that one. Underscore page is not camel case. Don't care. Page num. Page num. That should be an integer. I think it wants it to be. Which I can never spell. Let's just try that. And then run the build task again. What was it? Build. Oh, there we go. We are down. Cannot find name integer. That should be, what was it meant to be? Oh, number.
Number, maybe?
Number, that's cool. That works. And then this here is saying property photos does not exist on type error response photos. Property photos.
Can you do yeah.
Is it that way or the other way? I can never remember.
Exactly. Yeah, it's one of those.
One of those two.
I want to say it's the.
I think
I get it confused with Apex. It feels like they're different.
Identify yeah, it's the other way around.
I was trying to think of the proper term for that.
You mean the null coalescing operator?
There we go, null coalescing. Yeah, that was the word.
Okay, cool.
I wasn't
photos
thinking
does
of.
not exist on type error response photos. Property photos does not exist on type error response. Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting.
So I think what we're going to do is something like if response dot no if type of response response equals error response. Do nothing. Otherwise, I don't know why I've done it that way around for anyone who's going to ask. This dot error response dot error, that works. Fine. How have I got more errors from doing that? Type string is not assignable to a type number. It's not a string, it's... Okay, let's wind that back as I've managed to make more errors. Right.
You need to put a try catch in there.
Yeah, maybe that could work. Excuse me. Right, try that. No, it shouldn't be this dot catch. No, it's not going to like that. This photos does not exist on type response. And it's still saying this whole string is not assignable to a number thing. Oi, okay. Is the dev going to work for us any better? No. No bad option. Sorry, capability snob. Oh, so you think just doing this might allow it to work? I don't think so, unfortunately. I think it's just TypeScript being TypeScript. Photo, yeah, it's still the same error. Photos does not exist on this time. It's because it thinks it's an error response. TypeScript has some very, very nuanced opinions on things. Whilst we're sorry, Pete, have you ever done much TypeScript? And if so, what are your thoughts on it?
Not a ton, actually. I'm actually a little surprised that because I thought TypeScript would accept like straight up JavaScript, but
Yeah, so did I. That's not helpful. I wonder if this is something in the way dev runs, import, blah, blah, blah. All right, let me just try that. Oh, there we go. Bunch of errors. Command not found still. Right.
yeah.
The command is not registered somewhere in this craziness. So I think if we go back to package JSON.
If you were using a cursor or windsurf, you'd be fine. Just saying. Oh, using cursor or windsurf. I'm not familiar with those, Michael. That's Michael Gill, by the way. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Mike. Cursor or windsurf? I mean, we can switch. We're not necessarily tied to this. It's more just we were trying to use this as it's the one that the Salesforce team also use. Commands /dist commands. So this one, picture.js. Yes, it's in there. It should be. It's definitely in there. Flags run. Why is it not?
Oakcliff doesn't recognize created commands. Is that what you're looking at?
I'm just having a look in there, but yeah, basically, it's the that's the problem.
But it does then say run npm run build.
Is that what it says? Oh, what does it say there?
Just this is a Stack Exchange,
Okay.
or Stack Overflow answer.
Let me just clear this screen a minute.
Here, there's the Stack Overflow answer
Command
that I was
function
looking
not
at.
found. Where's the? Yeah. Experimental loader may be removed in the future. Instead, use register. Yada yada yada. Node show the error. Type string is not sendable to type number. It's the same TypeScript error.
Hmm.
Oh, TypeScript. Awful, awful thing. Right. So, given where we are then, Pete, we have an hour or so left. Do we want
Yeah.
to persist down this route? Are we not? Are we going to have the same problem with the SF command line plugin?
Shouldn't do, because we were talking about just making the call to Salesforce with that. We're not going to try and stand up the Pexels API call in the Salesforce CLI, were we?
No, but I'm just meaning in general. Are we going to have the same TypeScript kind of head banging shenanigans?
Um, Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Right.
uh,
So what then?
yeah, I mean, we can give it a go, and see
I'm
what's
gonna hand over control to you. And
okay.
do you want to start off? I'm gonna have a quick look in the background to see if I can still nudge this along. So I'm gonna stop sharing my
Yeah.
screen and let Peter share his.
Okay. Although I'm gonna need a little bit of an assist
Of
at
course,
some
you can
point,
feel free to throw anything my way you need assisting.
because so this is interesting. Uh, yeah, to actually run the command to create the Salesforce CLI, I'm gonna need to do that locally on yours, or switch over and do it on my machine.
Are you okay to do it on yours? And I'll. Or do you want
I
to alter
could
it?
try, yeah. Um, so yeah, okay. Give me 1 second, and let me just get all the bits in place that I need. Ta-dam.
This is going to be one of those things where I'm going to ask people if there is. So the issue capability snob that I believe we have is not that we are not null coalescing. It's that TypeScript is expecting us to do a type check beforehand, um, which is where the problem is, I believe. One of the interesting things, like, so I've never really worked with TypeScript for like a few kind of reasons. Purely because like I'm one of these people that is quite happy with regular JavaScript, but um, I do I see there being a use of it. But I suppose my conundrum and query is always like, well, why would we not want to do this? Why would we not want to do this? I suppose is always my thought. Um, but that's just me. That is just me.
All right. So I've got that up, and do you want me to connect you to my session so that way you can be playing along too, or should I just roll with it?
Just roll with it, and I'm watching along whilst I'm checking
Okay.
this thing. Type of X.
All right. Share screen, entire screen, and we want that one, I believe.
Oh, am I being really thick?
All right. So I think you need to put my screen up onto the stage.
Yes, sorry, yeah. Sorry,
That's
I
right.
may have just seen me be extremely stupid.
Oh, do you want to?
No, I'm not being extremely stupid. I'm okay.
Okay.
I mean, I may be
Uh,
being extremely stupid elsewhere, but not in this one instance where I was looking right there.
so the next stage we were going to do, once we had a working API call using Oak Cliff, which was the plan, was then to kind of move on and look at, you know, doing essentially the same thing, but showing how the Salesforce CLI could do it. And in that instance, really the point is, you know, I think showing Oak Cliff and the Salesforce CLI in the same show is really useful because uh, I think it's there may be some cases where you might want to make a call to a service that isn't Salesforce in a Salesforce CLI plugin, maybe related to some part of a CI/CD process or something like that. But most of the time, if you're going to write a command line interface that's going to something that's not related to Salesforce, Oakcliff is going to be a lot more lightweight. You don't have all of the overhead of the Salesforce stuff that comes with the Salesforce CLI plugin. Um,
Hmm.
so that's why you would use something like Oakcliff. Um, on the other hand, if you are going to make a call to Salesforce for something, it makes a lot of sense to use the Salesforce CLI because all of the stuff that is there to connect to your org is already there. It's kind of built in. And so then it makes sense. You don't have to basically fiddle around with making the API call through some other library, like JS Force would be an option. It's all packaged in there. And because you're using the Salesforce CLI, you've probably already made a connection to an org, or once you've made a connection to the org, then all the authorization stuff is there, which is very different from Pexels, which is, it has an API key, but doesn't have an authorized user that you have to connect as. Or rather, the user is associated. There's one user associated with the API key, is maybe a better way of putting it. So, SF plugins, and then I believe generate. There we go. So the second option there, SF plugins generate, create a new SF plugin, and then it looks like we give it a name. What do we want to what do we want to call our plugin name in this instance?
What should we call it? I mean, maybe call it like it's a
Cloud
throwaway
Bytes.
one, isn't it? Really. So
Yeah, I'll just call it Cloud Bytes.
yeah, we'll go for Cloud Bytes for now. Let's not
Okay.
publish that and use that one.
Did you mean plugins generate SF? Okay, so I must be missing some part of it. Plugins generate. No, it's just coming up. All right. So then the next option is to do help. Um, oh, I need to do an update at some point. So plugins. Oh, I need to do. Do I need to give it a name? Generate plugin instead. Okay, let's try again. So SF generate. I have really not adjusted yet to the new naming of the Salesforce CLI
No, no.
for the different commands and topics and that sort of thing. Okay, and then if I do help, generate plugin. Oh, SF dev generate plugin. I totally missed that on the previous message. So I'm actually, let's Control C out of that and SF dev generate plugin. Yes. I want
Mm,
to build a plugin, and no, I am not part of the Salesforce internal team. Which I did take some time to read the docs about this, so I wasn't completely flying blind.
yeah.
And it gives you a different set of scaffolding, basically. So presumably, there's some internal scaffolding that goes along with however the internal plugin teams are generating this, and we don't really need it. So it's probably like more strict, and there's more hoops to jump through, and there may be even like certain like flags that get default generated, I would imagine. So no, I am not an internal team member. The name of our new plugin, I'll say hello.
Yep.
Um, enter a robust description. I love that they use the word robust here.
And
This
don't mess up. Enter a proper description, Pete.
There we go. Yeah, I'm the author. And I thought this was interesting. Did the Oak Cliff one do this? I missed when you went through that, where it asks you how much code coverage you
Oh
want
no,
to.
it doesn't do that.
Okay,
That's very
I'm
much
just
a
gonna go with
Salesforce.
0 for now. Like, don't do this at home, people. But I don't want to have to bother with code coverage to maybe link it and be able to call it from the command line. So I'm just gonna say 0. But normally I would probably do something more along the 75 to 100%. Yeah. Now, one thing I will say is that the instructions for going through this do pretty clearly stipulate um, to uh, to make sure that you have updated to the latest version of Node, updated to the latest version of the CLI, which I didn't do. And actually, that may have been a mistake because I ran into a bug when I was playing with this earlier. So because it won't take much time. So hello plugin, I think was my other one. Is that right? Well, yeah, obviously hello is the one I created today. So r minus rf hello, and I'm just going to do that again after I do sf update. So anything you want to commentate about while we wait for my command line to update?
So I was looking away in the background. So I fixed one of the problems, which was because we were using the toFix method in JavaScript that returns a string apparently, rather
Which
than
which method?
if
Oh,
you
to
if you
fixed.
yeah, toFix returns a string. So I've used round, which will do exactly the same work for us, and then that will go. Um,
Interesting.
yes, that's all fine and dandy. Um, so I think that the thing that we're facing elsewhere is in the in the in the response back we're getting. So because we're using an npm package that is not TypeScript, Pexels is not a TypeScript based package. It is just a generic package.
Right.
Um, it is therefore kind of returning to us something, and TypeScript is doing a bit of guesswork to say it could be a response, an error response, or it could be a photos response. You're not
Oh,
sure.
okay.
So what I think it's doing is trying to kind of save us from that problem by saying, oh no, it's not going to compile because photos doesn't exist on an error response. And obviously, photos does exist on photos.
Mhm.
So we would have two options there. One is we could go in our type definitions, wherever we would keep them, um, and go in and add that in as a type and override that type and then define what would be in there. Um, I think the other thing we could do is put out if the type is an error response or a type is a photos response, then work with that. Um, but I'm not 100% clear if that is gonna work as we expect to. If I'm really honest, because I'm pretty sure we're going to get some sort of strange error then that's going to tell us that it's not. I don't know that it's not a string or something. The comparison appears to be unintentional because the type string number begin and photos have no overlap. Ooh,
I had this happen in a recent update. It somehow like listed what I was updated as a much older version, and I just had that happen again.
Yeah.
So now hopefully there we go. So now it thinks it's the right version. So one more time, let's actually go in and do sfdev generate plugin. No. Uh, Cloud Bytes. This is a plugin. Yes. 0. All right. And we're off and running. Okay. So CD Cloud Bytes. And there we go. So code dot, and we're good to go. And I'll make that a little bigger. Okay, so like straight away, immediately, create new terminal. I'll run the terminal from inside for now. Okay, so there should be a commands hello world. Like, so that one just gets created by default, and just kind of like with Oak Cliff, bin dev.ts, and how do I, there we go. So hello world. Oops. Is it dev.js? Let's see if it's dev.js. Ah, there we go. That's happier. Now, this was something that I ran into, and it's fixable. So, but unfortunately, this is a really deep dependency in the JSForce library that they use to connect to Salesforce.
Okay.
And so the way to actually make that go away so I can run this without having to see this deprecation warning, I actually need to go into dev.js, and there's a bit I need to add. And let me go and look up here. So github.com, Salesforce CLI. It's not that one. It's because the Salesforce CLI, force.com CLI issues, that may just be the exact issue that. So I was being
The exact
annoyed
issue
by
you had
this.
the other day.
Yeah. So essentially, what I found out here was if I use this no deprecation flag here in run.js, then I can do away with having to worry about that error, that stack trace popping up every time I run dev.js. And so if I do bin/dev.js hello world, there we go. And now I just get hello world. So, and my understanding is there's nothing the Salesforce CLI team can do about this. They've raised their own issue on the JSForce open source repo,
Yeah.
and like it's pinned to this version of puny code that like they can't shift out at the moment. So at some point in the future, you won't need to have this. You know, the no deprecation thing is maybe there was an alternative to just be able to hide the one exception, but I couldn't get that one to work. So we'll do that one. Okay. And the thing that is worth pointing out here is, part of the reason you use a command line um, uh, framework is it does all this extra stuff for you. So the command to, or the flag to get help, for example, is just automatically built in. And so like there's some stuff in there. And same thing when you create a new command as well, which is what we're going to do next. Okay, and I am going to follow there's a getting started guide here
Hmm.
that comes along with it. So I'm just kind of going through the getting started guide on my other uh, monitor. And that's all I'm looking at right there. And that's under github.com, Salesforce CLI/CLI. It's in that repo. They've got a wiki that, and that is the Salesforce CLI plugin developer guide. There used to be an official guide that was out on developer.salesforce.com, but they've now moved all of that into docs directly in the Salesforce CLI repo. So go check that out. And I don't know if you want to post that link.
Yes, I will find the
Yeah,
link to developing a plugin on the CLI.
cool. All right. So I'll go ahead and switch. Do I have there we go. No. I'll do it from my command line here for this bit. So the next thing we want to do is sf dev. There we go. Generate command. And then we want the name. And so this one, you'd said we'd been talking about doing a query or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think what we do is we do a query.
Mhm.
So let's try and get. So the original plan for some of this was we were going to try and go and connect and find a user and retrieve their profile picture, and then
Right.
create an ASCII image of that. So let's try querying for a user. So maybe we want to call this one. Do you want to call it get user pick or something like that?
Uh,
Get
yeah.
profile pic.
I wonder. So, like, this is one of those things I've not used this enough to know, like, what's the right way to do this because, like, there's a bit in the getting started where they call it connect org, right? And then they separate. So
Yeah,
you could do like get user pick, for example, right?
yeah,
And then you have like those three different commands, or you could say user pick as like one. So, like, how you structure this is one of those things. I think the way that I would probably call it is user, although maybe that's already an existing command. It might like not like okay. So I'm just gonna call it user pick, I think, and just use a single command and leave it at that. Although it's probably one of those things where if you're building a tool that has like several different
yeah,
commands, you kind of want to think a little bit of the almost like a data architecture for your command structure so that it's fairly rational and followable by your users. That would be
yeah.
my recommendation anyway, or that's how I would probably try to do it if I was building a full command line.
I think there's an interesting thing to think about here, especially for
Mhm.
you and me, for when we're thinking of our broader piece. Because one of the interesting things that I have spent way too long thinking about in my past was API names. And when I say API names, I mean for a
Yeah.
REST API defining the names. And there was a really good what was the group called? Company that did APIs that got Apogee.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
Apogee, they got bought by Google.
and they got bought by Google. And one of their guys whose name escapes me now, Greg, he moved to Salesforce.
Greg Ruiz is a former Apogee
Greg,
developer advocate who then became a Salesforce developer evangelist, who then became a Salesforce product manager for Lightning components, Lightning Web Components.
so Greg is the person I'm thinking of, like sort of quite thin, grey hair, like had a
Uh-huh.
ponytail at one point, but I don't
He's
think he did.
retired
But
to Costa Rica now.
I'm gonna check it's the same guy. But
No, it's
Greg,
totally him. It's absolutely him. I'm sure of it.
um, how was it Ruiz with a Z or Ruiz with a S?
Rewis. It's like
R
Lewis, but
E
with an R.
W I S. Uh,
Stephanie
R E.
Ruiz, his wife, also worked for Salesforce User Experience. She was a UX engineer,
So is it
and
Rewis?
Rewis. That's right.
Yeah, no, that is Greg. Yeah, so
Yeah.
so he had a fantastic course on Apogee about REST APIs.
Oh,
Him
cool.
and
Okay.
another chap about the naming conventions, the process of naming them, the process of coming up with descriptive nouns and verbs for them, and like how to work properly. It was one of the best courses for free as well that I'd ever seen. What was really weird as well is kind of I think he was with Christoph Codenratz and maybe like he was with a couple of other people I knew, but like sorry, this is a way off tangent story now, but
Totally fine. We never
Moscow.
follow tangents on this live
I don't
stream.
know, you know Moscone West at
Uh-huh.
Dreamforce when you end up kind of upstairs in the speakers area. So for
Yep.
those who haven't
Yep.
been at Dreamforce,
Oh,
Moscone
like
West,
the speakers lounge.
yeah. So Moscone West at Dreamforce is one of the buildings, and it's where typically the trailhead area is and admin and developer sessions are. It's like a 3-story mega building. Um, and on one of the floors, there's always a little area for speakers, and it's where if you are a speaker, you can go in, sit quietly at a table, and just like prep for your talk and things.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
I'll be honest, it's also a really good place just to kind of bump into people like quietly without them being like.
Totally. Yeah. It is
Um,
one of the perks of being a speaker at one of
yeah,
those conferences.
there's almost always a chair there, so
Yeah.
you can just sit down for
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I sat at this table chatting to a couple of people, but like, sort of what happens is typically it's these big kind of round conference tables, like you get at weddings and things like that. And I'm sat there, and like you may have even been there, Pete, if I'm being frank. But like there was someone like you or Skip or someone that I knew really well came over, said hello, and sat down. And then gradually, the table starts to fill up with people that like know each other and get introduced, or you all know each other and get introduced. And Greg just ended up sitting opposite me. And I did that weird thing where like I was introduced to him and I looked at him, it was like, and I was like, where do I know you from? And he was like, I don't think we've met. And I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, yeah, because I just recognized him. And then I was like,
Oh, funny.
5 minutes later, I looked up and like just had that light bulb. I was like, I don't know where I know you from. You used to work at Apogee and you did this amazing course. And it was really, and he was like, that was me. And like, never met him anyway, but it was a very weird moment to just be like, oh, yeah,
That's
that
pretty
relief
awesome.
of knowing where you know someone from. But yeah, he's a very, very, but that's a great course. But the point I was actually getting at was naming conventions for CLIs. Like, there's a lot of best practices defined around them for APIs. I
Hmm.
think that for CLIs there must be a similar sort of pattern and format, which is something we should perhaps look into.
I would bet it's really similar,
Mm,
like, in the end, you want sort of a logical, wider grouping that, for a set of resources, essentially. I mean, that's the way to think about these different topics and commands. Yeah, to me, it's probably a very similar approach that I would expect to take.
yeah,
So here we go. We've got our here's what a command looks like. And you can see we're importing something called SF command and flags. And then we're also importing messages. And those are both coming from some packages that are in that are a couple of the packages that are part of the core part of the Salesforce CLI. And if you dig into those, you'll find, and actually, I wonder if I were to look like under node modules here, which goes sort of dark, but in fact, that's the Oak Cliff module. So underneath the Salesforce CLI is that same Oak Cliff package that Paul was working with a moment ago. So this is essentially Oak Cliff with stuff that's like very Salesforce focused. Um, now, the thing that we are going to end up returning needs to be one of these, this user pick type
mm,
that's been created. So this too is written in TypeScript. Fortunately, there's a bit more example code to work with. I found, so
yes,
I just found myself sort of copying what was already there when I was playing with this, as I was prepping for this, and then there's also some data like summary, description, examples, so that That kind of goes into like the metadata, you can think of it, about the command. You've got different flags available, so those will be listed there. And then the run method again, that's what actually kicks off and does some logic. And since eventually what we're going to do, um, oh, actually, hang on one second. Yeah. So since what we're going to do is connect to a uh to the Salesforce org, um, we are going to need to know which org we're connecting to. And the
Yes,
other thing that we're going to want is something to identify the user by that we're going to query. And so that is, I would suggest we use the username.
that is a logical thing for us to use, as that is a wonderfully globally unique identifier.
So, all right. So, now, the way that we do that is we go ahead and generate the flags for that. So instead of sfdev generate command, I believe it's sf generate flag.
Yeah.
There we go. And we want to add it to user pick. So we get to pick which command we're actually going to add it to. Now type, there's a whole bunch of different types in here, but the thing that we need, and I think this is a good one to know. And by the way, it is in the little getting started guide. So
Yeah.
it's great that the getting started guide sort of forces you to use this type immediately. If your command has anything to do with changing something in your org, then you're going to want to identify the org, and it's a required thing for that command to function. So
Okay.
not required hub, but required org is actually a flag type that you can use. And there's some interesting sort of special usage, the way that that works. So I'll select that. Do you want to use the standard definition? Sure. I'm just going to do that. Presumably that is going to go into, again, the metadata about the flag, which then would also automatically be parsed out when you ran help, which makes sense. But if you wanted something special to go in there, I guess here's where you would choose a
Yeah.
different option. And I'm just going to take the default target org because that's what's used everywhere else in every other Salesforce CLI command. You probably already know if you use a Salesforce CLI.
Hmm.
All right. And I'm just going to check. I think that literally goes in and updates the file. Uh, yep. So here you can see it's added this target org, which is flag required org.
And so that will that pre-populate with our current org then as well? You were saying, sorry.
um, Yeah, so that's, I would assume, the way that that would work is if you've set a default org, it would just
Yeah.
go ahead and use it. But like maybe there's something special to make that happen. I guess that'll be something to test out. But I would
Yeah.
hope that that would be built into the type that they've defined.
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense to me.
Yeah, totally. Okay, and now so I'm going to generate the second flag. Now there is a flag in there already called name.
Hmm.
In theory, we could go ahead and use that, but I'm sort of curious to generate a new one. So I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
gonna I'm gonna
I
go
mean,
for
maybe we
it.
create one called like
Maybe I'll live to regret it. So
maybe we
generate
call it
flag.
target user perhaps because it's one that we want to use that's
Ooh,
different.
I like that. I was gonna call it username, but yeah, that's cool. I like it. So again, we'll do this for user pick. And this one, I think I'm gonna look through the list here. I don't want a Salesforce ID. I mean, to me, the one that makes the most sense is just string. So
Yeah.
we'll go ahead and do that. Um, it makes me wonder if there is I'm sure there's a way that you could extend the types here somehow. And
Oh
like if you wanted to set a type that was a flag type that was username, or email address, which is what usernames all look like, there
yeah.
probably would be a way to do that. Anyway, but we'll just do that. Enter the flag's name, target user, short description. This to be the Salesforce name of the user whose picture we want to retrieve. That's probably too long. That probably is more like what we would want in like a more
Mm.
like a longer description. So I'm actually just going to copy that, undo that, and rephrase this. I got a little bit verbose. So Salesforce user name is my summary. Oh, sorry. Wow, it wanted a period. Okay. Single character short name. What's a character that's not being used? Because it's like this is the thing. It's like which
Yeah,
one?
I mean, so this is target user maybe. So
Sure.
T is used, and it's a
I
single
don't
character,
know.
isn't it? What
It's
about like?
optional. I'm just gonna not use it.
Yeah, ignore it. Yep.
I don't want to get like caught up in that. Is this flag required? Yes, it is because we can't know unless we wanted to just set it. Like if you didn't set it, it just goes and gets the current user's one.
Yeah,
But I'm gonna say yes. So I don't want to build the logic of if this
no,
or that.
makes sense.
Can it be specified? So that would be interesting. So this is a cool thing that you can do. A multi-use or multiple times option means you
Hmm.
can repeat the flag over and over. And I didn't know this
Oh,
actually.
that's yeah. I've
So
never heard
you
that
can
one.
do like dash dash target user and then one username dash dash target user and then another username and then get both of them back. We're not going to do that. We're just going to get a user. I've decided. Um, so multiple times, no. All right, and let's go back and see what that looks like. Okay, so we have name is just the example one that came up there, which I'm not going to use. So I think I'm just going to get rid of it. I don't know if that's a problem,
Yeah,
but we'll see. So we have target
we'll find
org,
out.
target user. Yeah, there we go. Um, I don't like putting a trailing comma on an object or an array, so I'm just going to get rid of that trailing comma. And I don't know, maybe it would correct me later. Okay, so I've now got my flags, and let's see. Okay. So we have our user pick results. Now, this is something I was going to talk about in the Oak Cliff one. How are we doing time? Okay, probably need to pick up the pace.
Yeah,
Yeah, so in the Oak Cliff one, Paul had set a log message for the output, and what the one thing I was going to bring up about that is like log message is fine and it will come out in the console, but one thing about the command line is, do you want it logged or do you want it as actually standard out?
okay.
And I think in this case, in order for it to go out on standard out in the command, we want to return it. So that's what this return is actually doing.
Okay.
So that's, you can see here there's a path and a path that's coming out. Um, although that's interesting. Okay, and I got rid of name. So this dot log. So actually, you know what I want to do is I want to actually back up a moment and just read through this and get it to a point where I can actually run it before I
Mhm.
actually, which might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Uh, flags.target user.summary. That's interesting. Doesn't exist in the messages file user pick. So I need to go and maybe do that. All right, I might be setting myself up. Okay. So I need to come back and address that before it's going to work. I think I've like walked myself down a hole that but we'll come back to that in a moment. Because now I no longer have flags.name, but I do have flags.target.org, and I've also set both of these as required.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't mean I have to use them in my file, but I do need to provide them. But I am going to go ahead and select this. And in the sort of boilerplate code that it comes up with, where it says const dot, no, I'm going to do target user. So let's copy that. So const dot, oh, you know what? I'm going to use this. That's not going to work. So this will be flags.target user. All right. And then I can do this and control D, and then I can call that target user. I love that feature. Okay, so in theory, this should run, but I'm worried that I'm going to get a have a problem with that.
Mm.
But let's go ahead and try it. So let's pull this up. And so we want dot slash bin dev.js. And this one is going to be called
Was it
user picks.
Yeah. User pick.
Thank you.
Is it user picks or user pick? Looking at what you got.
That won't work. Well, let's try spelling it correctly. Oh, I didn't specify. All right. So user pick, target org, and I'll just say, oh, it's actually, I bet it's going to look for one. So let's try. I do have one called Learn CLI that's out there. It may actually validate and say like, you better be a real org, you know? So so we'll try that, and then dash target user equals this at that.com. Oh, it actually came back. I was a little concerned that wasn't going to work correctly. So that's a relief. Now what's interesting though is I would have expected it to return source command. Like I'm not sure like what's going on with this. Like why is it returning that? Do you understand that? Like so I got my user pick result, you know, I guess you know, so I'm going to run the promise.
So I'm trying to zoom in because it's a bit. You send me a live share actually, Pete. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
I was playing in the background trying to get this TypeScript thing to work, and I'm just now giving up
That's okay.
because it is mad.
So let me share read write.
I will, for those watching, I'm going to go away and try and figure out how I can do this, and we'll be visiting Stack Overflow to ask.
Okay, so I've just sent you the link.
Thank you.
Okay, so because what I would have thought is that somehow that would return like what I want to go out. It wouldn't have been a log message.
So what was the error that came through?
What works, I'm just trying to understand, like, how I get from this, and maybe yeah, what I might do is just have a quick look at.
Oh no, that worked perfect, Pete.
Yeah, it did. I just wanna know what I need to change next.
Oh,
So,
okay. So yeah, what we need to do to actually run some SF commands.
right, exactly. So connect org result.
So yeah, I think what we want to do is bum bum bum.
Oh, okay, I kind of see. Okay, now I'm kind of getting this a little better. So I'm trying to understand a little bit better is, like, what's the difference between, um, like, what I'm returning versus what's getting logged, right?
Yeah.
And, because I would have thought return is what's gonna go out on standard out. So I do sort of wonder if I just did this, um, and did return like that. Yeah, so that's because it's not a user pick result. So what I need to do is, like, there's this path thing out there. Uh,
Okay, so I think
I'm just going to use that as in place. So if I do return like that and do path colon, now it's not complaining. And if I run it, let's see what that looks like. I still only get the one output, which is interesting. And is that
hmm,
coming from the log message?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the return doesn't do anything.
What does wait? Yeah, okay. So that one, yeah, nothing came out in that instance.
Okay, well, that's it. I'm way off then.
That's curious. Yeah, that's I find that a little bit puzzling. Why is that complaining? Oh, expected a tab or space after the okay. Well, that's interesting. Linter. Okay. All right. Well, let's just go with it. In any case, I've got a command that runs and takes inputs, and I can give it the right kinds of inputs. So that's a good starting point. Let's see where I get from here. Um, so the actual output that we want is going to be eventually it's going to be the ASCII-ified version of
Yeah.
picture, right?
Yes, but we probably. I mean, I suppose the first thing we want to try and get is to get the see if we can get the URL for that image first of all.
That's
Or
a
the,
good point. And actually make the call in the first place.
yeah,
So
I'm just looking
let's
into the thing to find where query is because I think there is something about the REST API, but I'm just trying to find. Or I thought there was something about where you could run queries in the REST API things, but I'm just struggling to find it. Cool.
okay.
Sockle.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm kind of looking at some of this example code, and
Is that
it
the example
look
code on
yeah, for the
the
for
wiki?
the quick start on this. Okay, and okay, starting to get it's starting to so essentially the run command is gonna we need to pull the flags off of the user pick uh, JavaScript class here. And that is already done for us here. And so we
Yeah.
have the flags, so that's good. And once we have those, we can get some information off of it. So like const org ID equals flags. And then you have to, so target org dot get org ID, like that.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that's because I spelled it wrong, get org ID. And then that's just saying that because I've not used it. Right. And so now I can kind of come back here and say, hello. Instead of just taking that raw target user value, I can put in org ID. And actually, I'll put that back to the log message too. Da-da. And now running one more time. Turn that off. Did you just try to chat me?
No.
Okay.
You just like to
Command
pop up.
user pick not found. I didn't expect that.
There's an error on the target user thing. Just see what it says
Oh,
there.
thank you.
Is the club
What happened?
signed a value but is never used? I mean,
That shouldn't cause it to not run, unless it's a TypeScript thing.
yeah, maybe just if you comment that out and it disappears, then
TypeScript, TypeScript, TypeScript. I tell you. Yeah, it's true. I could have commented that out. That's a good point. Hmm. Okay, so that's good. Now, am I ever going to actually use org ID? Maybe. We'll just assume I will at some point. But the way that I actually get the connection to my Salesforce org, what I was thinking is if I do const my org equals flags.target.org like that, then can I do, I would think I'd be able to do my org ID.
So I think something that's just become very clear for me that I perhaps didn't
Yeah.
realize a second ago is when we were saying about JS Force. Hey, Aman, thank you for joining us. And a special shout out to Peter from Aman. There you go. When we say it's extending JS Force or uses JS Force, it actually just really is extending JS Force. Like I didn't realize how core JS Force was to it. Sorry.
Oh
Apologies.
yeah. Yeah. Now I already know that I can kind of get something out of here, and that works. Like, get org ID. The reason I'm going to get connection is because I'm going to do const result equals await connection dot query. And now we're getting into some TypeScripty type of stuff. So I need a type. And so we'll define that. How to say doing that? Right. So
What's it called?
let's create a JavaScript object, and we want name. Actually, what are the user fields that we want? I'm
We'll
going to go
probably
ahead and
just
do
want,
ID.
I mean, if we just want I was going to get just the full photo URL. Is probably all we want, which is going to be the image for that photo.
What is it?
Full photo URL.
Okay. So ID is going to be a string, and then full photo URL.
Which is also
Also string, I assume.
you would assume very correctly.
One might assume. And now we can actually do our SOQL query. So this should be select ID, comma, full photo URL. I'm sure it's probably.
It is capitalized, yeah.
Is it all
I know
caps or
it's
just
yeah,
camel
no,
case?
it's capitalized. It's Oh no, it's not. You're right. Weird.
I'm expecting, if it was just SOQL,
Yeah.
it'd be like, whatever. If it was Apex, you'd be like,
Yeah,
whatever.
there'd be
Right?
some
But
some
this is
stupid.
TypeScript, and I'm expecting TypeScript to be really picky once it get like whatever Salesforce sends it out as. That's what I'm expecting it to want. So from user where where I'm looking for username.
Yep.
Is it just username
Yeah.
equals? And actually what I probably should have done is done like some string interpolation, because that'll be way
Yeah.
easier.
The only other quick thing to note is your target user flag is actually 2 lines down.
Oh, good point. Thank you. Oops, wrong. That's better. Oh, and this we don't want. So that's interesting. I'm gonna comment that out, because I might want to revisit that at some point. Like, could you do a default value as the current user? It's a required flag, so it's going to have to be populated,
Yeah.
but it's an interesting thought. So I'll leave it there for later. And then we can grab you and pop that in. Okay, it's not liking that. Thank you. Yep, that makes sense. And that is probably just because it's not been used.
Yeah, and so we probably just want to ping it out on the log.
And so here, to dollar result dot records. So I think it's still going to come back
Yeah.
0. Let's give that a shot. Should we roll that out? See if
Give it a go. Let's see if this works.
see if I could actually call.
If,
Oh, it
if
didn't
in
like
2
that.
hours you and I have managed to get a basic command line that calls the Salesforce API done,
It's our usual productive rate, work rate for this. So what did I do wrong? Connection is declared, but value never read.
connection dot. Yeah. What's it saying? Connection is.
That's curious. I know that is because I didn't put a space and result equal get connection. That's really puzzling. I'm totally
So sorry. Try running it again, Pete, I know you haven't done anything to change it. Just seeing what the error command user pick was not found. Plugin warning. Connection is declared, but its value is never used. Plugins, cloud bytes, no. Core config plugin. Does it give you a line where it's erroring? Is what I'm trying to figure. Bin dev line.
Line 29.
Do you? 1 minute. Is connection not? You don't need to define connection. I think connections are global. I think core. I think you've already got it in there from.
Oh,
try it without that.
That's not what I'm seeing. So what do you want me to do? Just get.
I suggest that
Uh,
to just try it like that, which I think is madness. I think it's going to whinge elsewhere, but
Okay, we'll give it a try. I'm always game.
no, different error. Connection not found.
Yeah.
They cannot find name connection. Okay.
Let me undo some of this, and because I don't need this in the end.
Nope.
And so that means I don't need that one. And I'm gonna get rid of this oh, I don't have a. Does that matter? I know sometimes, like, I see a lot of Node.js programs where, like, I didn't have a semicolon at the end of a line. I would have thought it would have given a different error if that was the case. Well, that is a different error. It was maybe. Wow. Okay. Semicolon. I wouldn't have guessed semicolon from that. Where
So what
username?
was
Oh,
your
because
issue?
I don't have that
Sorry,
username.
what was your issue?
And I'm connecting to. So my username. I need to actually give it a proper username that now. So this should be Peter at learncli.demo. It didn't like that either.
Unexpected token. Is it? 1 minute. I know what it is.
Oh, thank you. That's.
There you go. I've contributed.
Yay.
Hey, hello.
At least
We've got
I called Salesforce and it worked.
awesome source. So so if we were to put this, then if we just did like that and
Yeah,
rerun it. So if you
it
rerun that,
should.
then should we? Well, we should get the wonderful little Astro picture if you run that.
It definitely should. Well, I should get the
Just
I should get the URL to the Astro picture, right?
yes, sorry, yeah. No. It's because we're doing the log, isn't it? So it should be.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
There.
See that one more time.
And now org ID is not needed, but hey. It's now whinging about org ID. Command user pick not found. 1 minute. Try that. Last try. Come on.
Yay.
Cool. So we are at time anyway. So I think that's a wonderful kind of flourished finish. At the end, we managed to get the most basic URL. If you click that URL, does it open anything up? I wonder if it gives you a security kind of restriction.
It's gonna open. I'll just copy and paste it into a browser window. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
it's going to require you to log in. That's fine. So let's take 5 minutes to just wrap up where we are,
Sounds
um,
good.
and talk about what we're going to try and do from it. So what we've gone through today is trying to set up an Oak Cliff command line and failing miserably at that. I did get a bit further with it in the background whilst you were going through the stuff. So thank you, Peter, for taking the lead on that whilst I was trying to play around with it. I'm
Yeah, no problem.
still getting the same error, but I've nudged the error around a little bit. Um, so I'm going to go away and see if I can figure out how I can get rid of that. Yeah, if I can, we'll come back next week and talk about that. We have gone through and got a very basic plugin working. Now, what I think would be cool to do next week, and what you and I can go away and do in the background, if you don't mind sharing the code, we'll stick it into the repository somewhere if you can share that, Pete, is let's go away and finish off this little plugin over the next couple of weeks so that it does get a photo URL. And we'll have restrictions like the photo URL you have to be able to set as public, which is doable, not hard, but you know.
Mhm.
And then we can get that and output that as some ASCII art, and I think that puts a nice little bow on things.
Yeah.
And then what I think we can do next week is if we spend a bit of time talking about what we've done with the Oak Cliff side of things, a bit of time talking about what we've done there, because
Mhm.
that'll easily take us, I think, to the hour. And then I think what we can do is talk people through the plan of what we're thinking about doing for a bigger command line piece. And not a bigger command line because there ain't no way I'm messing around with TypeScript forever and ever. But doing some bits and pieces. So, and I might have
Yeah.
a look at Mike Gill recommended Cursor or Windsurf. We can have a look at those as well, see if those make things easier for us and how they work. And so, yeah, in 2 weeks' time, Peter and I are going to come back, have these things tweaked. But should we give a little kind of overview of what we're thinking of doing with command lines, or should we keep people on tenterhooks until 2 weeks' time?
I think let's announce it, like, in the next one. So,
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
everyone's
I'm
going to come back. So,
let's leave it as a cliffhanger. Like, will our heroes come back and have solved the problem? So,
well, I mean, there's two things. A, will we have solved the problems? Who knows?
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I've got 2 weeks to learn TypeScript, it seems. But thank you so much, everyone, for watching and joining us, for all the comments and chatting along with us. It's really, really appreciate that. If you have enjoyed it, please remember to subscribe to stay up to date and to get all the other videos that come out, and to leave it a little thumbs up, as that helps other people find it and see it. And love to hear the comments, love to hear the chat. And if you're watching along afterwards, I hope you enjoyed some of the chaos as ever. And look forward to seeing everyone in a couple of weeks for the next one of these. Thank you once again, Peter, for all your help and assistance, and today especially the wrangling. And
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Thanks for hosting it, and I'm looking forward to doing this again.
We'll see everyone in 2 weeks' time. Thanks, everyone.
See you, everybody. Bye.